Hello, so in this video I want to explain a little bit about what I'm hoping to achieve out of these videos, who I'm trying to reach, and how basically through my own experience, how I hope that I can guide people in some sense. And then a little bit of a backstory on me and how I got to this point. Um, Now, I suppose I need to have a little bit of a disclaimer and explain that I'm not a doctor, a nutritionist, or have got any kind of clever kind of accolades or anything like that, other than some qualifications in construction, which I don't think are really going to help in this situation. But what I am is someone that had chronic fatigue syndrome, which I'll explain more about later, and then where my doctor couldn't help, essentially said that I need to learn how to live with the symptoms. I then went on to figure out how to completely get rid of my chronic fatigue, amongst other things. So it's more about coming from just the average person figuring out things where your doctor can't, essentially. And so the people that I'm trying to reach are like those sort of people. I was desperately trying to be healthy and improve my health and reverse my chronic fatigue. Um, and despite how hard I tried, whether it was through diet or exercise or anything else, sleep, it just didn't help. And I try to be more and more strict on these things. So it's about people that are not just chronic fatigue, but any kind of health really, where you're trying to get as healthy as possible, or trying to get any kind of health at all, really, but you just can't. The harder you try, the worse it seems to get. So that could be maybe you're trying to lose weight and you've tried all of the diets out there, the mainstream advice. Doctors aren't helping, and you're kind of at your wit's end with it all. Or it could be, I don't know, type 2 diabetes, for example. You've been told that you've got type 2, or you're pre-diabetic, and you kind of, it's like something that gets worse over time. Maybe there's an alternative to that. Maybe there's a solution to that that the doctor's not telling you, or is not even aware of, probably, to be honest. Or it could be any number of things that essentially, if you are just trying to, you're making a big effort to try and improve your health, but you're struggling despite following different advice, and you don't know how to get yourself out of that hole. Maybe what I can suggest to you, or what I'm going to explain to you from my own personal experience, might lead you on a path. Now, obviously, you are your own person. Anything that I say is through personal experience. It may help you on your journey, but don't take my word for it necessarily. As I say, I haven't got, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, so I'm in no place to really kind of tell you what you should or shouldn't do. It's more just information for you to then do some further research with, and maybe it can send you on a path that might lead you to a good place. I don't know. Hopefully, I'm hoping that that's what this will do. That's my main goal here. Um, so the premise is that I'm not gonna tell you, right, this is the diet that you need to follow, or that I've got gym, I've created some gym special diet or something that's gonna be this magic diet that solves all your problems. Um, or anything like that, really, or any other advice. Because I just think that in today's world, there's so much advice. There's so many, like if we're talking about food, diets, you've got the mainstream advice, depending on what country you live in. Obviously, in the States, that's changed completely now for the better, in my opinion. In the UK, it's still very much kind of like eat lots of whole grains, reduce your saturated fat, reduce your red meat, you know, increase or replace your saturated fats with seed oils or vegetable oils. Um, and then you've got every other diet thousands of diets out there as well that all promoting to be the best one, from vegan to carnivore and everything in between. So I'm not going to say to you, this is the diet that will solve your problems, because I think that that is just going to, it will just confuse you even more. I'm just adding to the confusion. It's so overwhelming, and it's hard to know what advice to follow. And even in my experience, when you do follow some of that advice, especially like mainstream advice as well, you try, all you're doing is you just try and be more and more strict, and you're not getting anywhere, and it can be really, really frustrating. That was my experience of it anyway. So what I do want to do is basically change the way you think about these things. Again, I'll stick with diet, because diet for me was like one of the biggest things, but there are other things that kind of this works for as well, such as sleep and rest, light, sunlight, artificial light. Like it all kind of like, the theory works for all of these, but I want you to just realize that the world we live in today is not normal for humans. It's normal to you and me because this is all we know, and this is what we've grown up with. We were born into this. But in terms of how humans have lived before this modern world, it's bizarre. It's not normal. It's a crazy world. Like, if you imagine, if you took a caveman or a hunter-gatherer and brought him into this world, and like it would be, I think it would blow their mind. And don't get me wrong, I think that this modern world that we live in, I think we're very, very fortunate. We don't have to worry about being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, or being hunted by anything like that. We don't have to worry about that. We've got safe homes generally. We've got heating. We don't have to worry about being cold. We don't have to worry about being too hot. In a lot of cases, we've got air conditioning. We've got electricity. We've got internet. We've got entertainment through smartphones, TV, whatever. That we've got gym for most people. You've got food, as much food as you want. You can either go to your cupboard. You can you can pop down the shops. You can tap your phone a few times and have it delivered to your door. It's a crazy world we live in, where that is available to us, and that's amazing. But we just have to remember, or I encourage you to remember, that it's not normal, and the way that humans have lived for the vast majority of their existence on this planet is vastly different to how we're living now. And when you think about things like that, when you change the context like that, you can then start asking questions about certain things. So let's stick with diet. So with diet, or what you eat, if you imagine going back to a time when we were wild humans, I think with diet, the big question is like, what is a human specific diet? What is a human diet? What food does your body expect and want? And I think in this modern world, with so many options out there, it's really hard to figure that out. And it's not just options, but also the advice, the different diets, the mainstream advice, everything. We kind of just take that as like, especially like the mainstream advice, we take that as being the truth. And I just don't think, when you change the context and you think about how humans would have lived and what they would have eaten, I don't know, it changes things a lot, in my opinion. I think that when you think about how, like a hunter-gatherer, what food would have been available, I mean, I don't even need to tell you. Right? Just picture it. Picture the scenario. You are now a hunter-gatherer. You're wearing a loincloth, and your number one job for the day is to go and find food. And you've got, a spear, whatever, and you and your mates, your tribe mates, go out and you go and find food. Right now, you can either hunt or gather. Right, that's why they're called hunter gatherers. Either way, they would have, like, if you were gathering, for example, so it would have been very dependent on the time of year as to what would be available, and it would be very dependent on where you live. Like when you go into a store, into a supermarket, and you go down the fruit and veg aisles, you have got such a wide variety, and we're encouraged to eat as many of those as possible, eat the rainbow. But would all of those have been available to us? Well, no, of course not. Bananas are only found in certain countries. If you didn't live in those countries, you would never even known what a banana is. Okay, unless you travel. But if you're a hunter gatherer, you wouldn't be traveling across seas. Um, so just think, like, I encourage you to think about food like that. It would be whatever would be native to your country, and it would be seasonal. Okay, it would be whatever was available at that time of the year. um, and then hunting again. If you think about, if you go out and hunt an animal and kill it, um, do you think that if you knew nothing, like you had no sort of context or no sort of information that's been fed to you about the health of certain foods, like red meat, for example, and saturated fat, animal fat, would you waste it? Like, if you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, would you say, oh yeah, I'm not going to eat that fat? The fat tastes good, by the way. Fat makes food taste good. So if it tastes good and it fills you up, fat is very satiating, it makes you feel full up. Would you dodge that? Would you cut that off as a hunter gatherer, not knowing where your next meal is coming from? It makes no logical sense to me. Um, and that's kind of the context. Now, there might be some people that would, if you think about that scenario, some people might go, oh yeah, well, it'll be more plant-based. Fine. Some people will be, oh, well, it'll be more animal-based. And some people in between. And that's fine. I'm not here to guide you one way or the other, or judge you one way or the other. But all I would say is try it. Right? The one thing that we can all agree on are the foods that would not have been around. Because I think that any foods that you would not have found in nature should not be consumed by humans, because we would never have consumed them before. So logic would tell me that they are not going to be healthy for you. Probably. The body has never consumed these things before, so that it's probably not going to do it any good. So we can eliminate probably like 90% of the food that we find in supermarkets. We can eliminate those because they would not have been around. The body would never have consumed them before, so they are alien to the body. Our bodies are amazing. We can seem to do really well for a long time on foods that are not natural to the human body. And I think that a lot of people can seem to be healthy up until kind of middle ages, really, 30s, maybe creeping into 40s, and seem to be doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden, middle age hits, and we go, oh, well, age has caught up with us. Things start going wrong, aches and pains start happening, weight starts coming on, even though you're doing exactly the same thing, you're eating exactly the same stuff. Well, in my opinion, now that I think about it logically, if we've been trying to eat in line with what we've been told is healthy, but actually, like whole grains, yeah, I mean, grains are a natural thing in terms of like it grows, but it's highly processed, and I don't think it wouldn't have been cropped like we have these days, and wouldn't have been made into things like cereals or bread. Like bread, I don't know, bread came about apparently 10,000 years ago. It was made very, very different then. A lot of the gluten would have come out of it in the process compared to the breads that we have today. A lot less chemicals would have been added to try and preserve it and like make it last longer. So I think personally, I think grains aren't natural to the human body. They're relative, even though it's 10,000 years ago, it seems like a long time, but actually, in comparison to human existence, it's only a short snippet of time. And then, things like seed oils. I mean, come on, they're highly, highly processed. Take a seed and squeeze it. How much oil do you get out of it? Take a sunflower seed. How much oil do you get out of that? You ain't going to get much out of it. So it has to be chemically extracted. It then smells rancid. It looks horrible. Doesn't look anything like an oil. It's like, I think it's like a black color essentially. So they have to reodorize it, recolor it. It's like massively highly processed and just not natural. We would not have consumed these things until recent times. So, and then things like animal fats, we would have eaten these for a long, long time. So my main point is like just using common sense and logic. Try and forget all of the information that we've been fed from day one, and use a bit of logic and try it. Just try it, because especially if you're struggling, like with me. So my story is that I was struggling with chronic fatigue. I was in a really bad place. It was like over years, over a number of years, it got worse and worse and worse. Started off with just being generally tired, constantly just wanting to sit down and chill out. But then it got to a point where my memory was getting really bad. I was really struggling to remember things. I was getting brain fog, couldn't think clearly. I was getting anxiety. I was getting depression, and I just wasn't enjoying life. I was in a really bad place, really dark, horrible place. And I was going to the doctors, and I think they just thought I was a hypochondriac, because I was going to them going, I've got this, and this. And they run some various tests and things like that. Couldn't find anything wrong. And he sat me down, the doctor, and I remember this day. He sat me down. He just said, "Look, we're going to have to try and figure out how to live with the symptoms." And that was basically, I translated that as stop moaning and get on with it. And I knew that I just couldn't maintain my life at that point with my job, full-time job as a father. At some point, I wouldn't be able to maintain it. And there were times when I would be in the office and I'd be sitting at my desk, and I felt like my head was going to explode. And I honestly thought, I'm sure that I'm on the brink of some sort of a mental breakdown. And I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew it would be a bit ugly. But I just thought I was going to have some kind of outburst or something. And essentially, what happened was I got. It seemed like at the time it seemed like one of the worst things ever. Like it was like oh bloody now this. But it turned out to be one of the best things. So I got diagnosed with peripheral artery disease. So in my right leg, I got a completely blocked artery, and in my left leg, I got a partially blocked artery. Essentially, I was working out, and that night, my legs would go burn up, like my muscles would burn quite quickly. Anyway, so it must have been a build up to it. And then one night after an exercise class, I noticed that my right leg just felt dead all night. Went to bed, didn't think anything of it. Got up in the morning, and then I couldn't walk from one end of the room to the other. I remember getting to my office. I had to walk up some stairs, and I had to keep stopping. I was getting these shooting pains up my back, and I thought it was like a trapped nerve at first. So I went to like physio. That didn't help. Anyway, I ended up getting it diagnosed, and it was peripheral artery disease, blocked arteries in my leg. Obviously, you can imagine at the time, thinking, God, if I've got blocked arteries in my leg, what about my heart? What about other arteries in the body? So kind of went into a bit of panic mode. Obviously, at that point, my GP said, well, now you're going to have to go on to an aspirin every day, and you're going to have to go on to a statin every day. And I remember I was like 36 at this point, 35, 36. And I remember thinking, God, like I am way too young to be going on to medication every single day. And so I started doing a bit of research. I was a bit skeptical. never really heard of statins. Well, I had heard of statins, but I didn't really know much about them. So I started digging. I went through the first, like you get the Google, you get the O's. So I went past the first couple of O's and started getting past like the mainstream advice and maybe getting into what people would consider maybe conspiracy advice. And I found a website by Zoe Harcum. It's a blog that I think she's still got it. And she had written quite a few articles about statins and about cholesterol. Um, and that kind of led me down a path. And I won't go into the whole statins and cholesterol thing. That's a whole other subject. But that led me down a path onto other people. And one of them was Dave Asprey, and at the time he had Bulletproof Radio, or Bulletproof was his company, which I think he's sold now. But um, I started listening to a lot of his podcasts. And one of his podcasts, he had, I think he was with his in-house doctor, and he said they were talking. He said, right, if you've got this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, and he listed out every single one of my symptoms. And I just remember thinking, God, I've never heard anyone like list out all my symptoms like that. There's no website I found that's listed out all my symptoms like that. And he said, you've got basically an energy problem. Like your cells in your body are struggling to produce energy. So your mitochondria are struggling to provide the energy, or they're struggling to function properly. And so he suggested to basically go on to what is a low carb keto diet. So you're cutting out all sort of like definitely all sugary stuff, but pasta, bread, any kind of grain based stuff. Um, Even like fruits as well, and some vegetables as well. Only cruciferous vegetables, and eating meat, fish, eggs, loads of butter. And I remember thinking at the time that like this sounds crazy, right? Because I started then looking into keto diets, and a lot of the recipes had lots of cream and cheese and things like that. And I remember thinking, God, this can't be right. But I was in a dark place, and I was thinking I'll try anything at this point. And it kind of forced me into trying it, so I did. I um, I started cutting out all bread, um, all fruit, and basically having, so I'd have like chicken and salad basically, or tuna and salad for lunch, and then I'd have steak and eggs for dinner, or salmon and eggs for dinner. And I did that for probably between a week and 2 weeks, and all of a sudden my brain switched on. All of my anxiety, my depression, my brain fog, um, my memory started coming back. All it just like it sorted itself out, and it was just I just went into this kind of state of confusion, because I was thinking, what, like it every time I was having dinner, I ended up having loads of cheese, loads of cream. I remember eating this stuff and it tasted amazing, but I remember thinking, this is like, surely this is clogging my arteries up. But at that point, I didn't care, because I was like, like if I end up dying and I'm happy, and because I started enjoying, like I wake up in the morning, and I'd look forward to the day, whereas every day I was like going to bed thinking, oh God, what's tomorrow got in store for me? Wake up in the morning and be like, oh no, what am I going to get today? All of a sudden I'm waking up and going, oh my God, like I'm looking forward to the day. I went from just surviving to thriving, and but yeah, I just went through this phase of absolute confusion, because I'm eating all these foods that we've been told we should either not eat or restrict. So I then I went through that phase for a while, just absolute confusion, to then having this kind of realization that, hang on a minute, I'm eating foods. A lot of the foods that we've been told that we should be eating just wouldn't have been available to us as humans before this modern world. And in actual fact, now the food that I am eating are the foods that are more in alignment with what we would have eaten as wild humans. So all of a sudden, it started making a lot of sense. But then I went from confused to kind of having this aha moment to then being a bit angry because I'm thinking like the advice that we're being given here is just wrong. It is wrong. And I've been suffering all this time trying to be as healthy as possible, trying to follow the, the dietary advice that we've been force fed. And when it's not working, just thinking that I need to be more strict with it or I need to work out more. And it's just wrong. And and just to explain what happened is not only did my chronic fatigue reduce, but I could never say that I was massively overweight, but I did start getting a bit of a belly and I did start, like, I was getting the old love handles. And I used to struggle with acid reflux really badly from a kid, and it was just something that I accepted was part of my life. That disappeared. And by the way, if I do ever cheat, and I do cheat every now and again, um, I'm only human. But if I do cheat, sometimes that starts coming back. Acid reflux starts coming back. I feel a bit groggy. If I have some bread or maybe I used to love beer. I used to love a beer. If I have a couple of beers, I feel a bit groggy. I really feel it. But yeah, so acid reflux went, my weight just dropped off, and I wasn't reducing the amount I ate. I wasn't restricting the amount I ate. Naturally, I started skipping breakfast because I just wasn't. I mean, a lot of people skip breakfast anyway, but we've been told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which I just think is a big marketing campaign. And so I stopped eating breakfast, and then I'll just have lunch and dinner, and I would eat until I'm full. And my weight just dropped off to the point where actually people started saying, "Are you okay?" And I think it was my body detoxing because I did lose a lot of weight. I started getting really like here, I was getting all my bones was starting to stick out. Even I was a bit like, "Well, this is a bit much." But I believe that it was where I filled my cells up with junk food, essentially. That my body was then right. Okay, now you've given me the good stuff. I'm going to get rid of this, and it just went through almost like a detox phase, and that went on for maybe probably like a couple of years. Actually, I just lost all this weight, naturally lost all this weight, and then I started work. Well, I always did work out, but I carried on working out, and the muscle then come back on. Don't get wrong, not massive, but I've got a bit of muscle formation there, and now I only work out twice a week if I can. Sometimes only once a week, and I do no more than 15 to 20 minutes in the gym, just doing heavy weights basically, and that's it. That's all I do. And I'm like, how old am I now? I'm 45, 46 this year, and I've got a six pack. And I don't even try. Like, honestly, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that to let you know when you change your way of thinking and figure these things out logically, and then follow the, using your brain that we're so blessed to have as humans. We've got these really logical thinking, clever brains. Just using that to figure out these things like what we should be eating as humans. That's what it's given me, and maybe it could give to you if you use that same philosophy. And that's kind of like why I went through that phase of like anger, of being like, why are we given this advice? Surely, like, is this in like have we just taken a wrong turn somewhere down the road accidentally and ended up where we are in terms of the dietary advice that we're given, or is it intentional? I don't know. That's a whole other thing. I'm not here to talk about all of that stuff. I'm just here to kind of try and help you find another way to think about it, and that's it. So that anger led me to this. So I've got a blog as well. So I've been writing on my blog for a couple of years. There's loads of posts on there. It's jimajackson.com. Go on there. There's loads of articles on there about all sorts of different things. I basically say that for basic health, the health that we are all entitled to, we should all have, really, and I think we would have had if we were wild humans, is the foundational pillars for that are how we refuel, what you put in your mouth, what grub you put in your mouth, and then how you recharge, which is sleep and rest, and could even be like things like being at one with nature a little bit. It starts getting a bit woo-woo, but I do think there's something there with that. Maybe some meditation, unplugging from this modern world. Sometimes we say to ourselves, oh, I'm just going to take 5 minutes to chill out, and then we go on social media. That is not chilling out. That is not chilling out. That is your brain. You're getting dopamine hits with your brain. You're feeding your brain. Like, chilling out is just not doing anything. It's not doing, or maybe doing minimal, going for a walk or something, but just without anything, no input in your ears, just listening to, if you can get out in the woods and things like that, get out in the woods, and just listen to the sounds that are going on around you. But the principles that I've explained here are relevant to really anything. So I think that refueling and recharging are the two main pillars. If we get those right, if you get those or somewhere near, then if you get those like somewhere near, then you're in a good place. And then you can then work on maybe optimizing, and then we're talking about light as well, artificial light. Again, use logic. If we were like living as wild humans, think about, we would have seen the sun in the morning and throughout the day, and then we would have seen the sun go down. That is a trigger to our brains, to our body, to tell us when it's time to wake up and when it's time to start feeling sleepy. When we come indoors in our modern world and we've got these artificial lights, we'll just think what that's doing. When the body is expecting the sun to go down, the light to start dimming, and to essentially be in total blackness, apart from maybe a fire or something, we'll think what's happening when we're flooding our bodies and our eyes with this artificial light. Just imagine how much confusion that's causing. And when we're looking at our phones as well, that's taking light directly into our eyes. Just think about that. And one of the biggest problems I think that we have in our modern world is that most people don't even know. They're so unaware that it's an issue. And I think that is one of the biggest problems that we've got in humanity. And so what I want to try and do is figure out a way of living in this modern world, but still being in touch with our wild side, our wild human side, because that is how we're going to be able to fully take advantage of our modern world and all of these luxuries and advantages that we've got, but still be healthy as a human race. Because we are struggling as a human race. The facts are out there that birth rates are diminishing. Don't get me wrong, I mean, we're kind of infecting this planet, but you kind of think that maybe that's a good thing. But at the same time, it's a bit worrying, really, when there's more humans on this planet than ever before, but so many more people are not interested in having babies, or maybe can't have babies. And why is that? Why is that? I think that, as a living organism on this planet, there are like two main things, and that is to survive and to recreate. And we are failing in both of those, or we are surviving, sorry, but we're not surviving very well or very healthily, and birth rates are going down, so we're kind of struggling in that area too. So I'll end this now and just say that that's kind of like what I want to, that's kind of like my goal, my theory, my mission, and I'm hoping that it can reach, hopefully many people, but even if it only helps one, that would be amazing. And so I'm going to be doing hopefully a video a week. That's the plan at the moment, and just putting some ideas out there, really trying to help people see another way of thinking about things. So yeah, I think that's it. I think I've said enough now. I've gone on enough now, and hopefully you've got a good idea of where I'm coming from. And I would ask you to keep an eye out for any future videos. And I don't know, what do you say in these scenarios? Subscribe, like, whatever. and have a really good day. Thank you very much.